Chapter 5. Dara let out a frightened shriek. She shot out her hands as if to shield herself. Josh stopped inches in front of her, breathing hard. He heaved the poker to the floor, and with a furious cry, he spun around and ran to the hallway door leading to the left wing. "Josh, stop!" Dara cried. She leaped to her feet and took off after him. My heart pounding, I stood up and turned to the doorway. Jenny and Ken were on their feet too. Even Tony and Carla gaped in shock. "What's his problem?" Jenny whispered to me. I shrugged. I was as startled as everyone else. Dara caught up with Josh at the door. She threw her arms around his neck and dragged him back toward the fire. "Come on back, Josh. Come on," she pleaded. "Did you really think I was going to name you? Did you? I was teasing. You know me, Josh. I guess I have a mean streak or something. I wasn't going to name you. I was just trying to get a reaction. That's all." She kept talking to him, soothing him, pulling him back. "Josh, come on." He stopped trying to escape. Now he just stood there, eyes on the floor, a very unhappy expression on his face. I thought he might burst into tears. He looked so sad and forlorn. Dara stopped halfway across the room, stepped around him, and pressed her forehead against his. "Sorry," she said. "Sorry, Josh." She let go of him and stepped back. "Apology accepted?" "I guess," Josh muttered. Even from across the room, I could see that his face was bright red. Josh fiddled nervously with his glasses. "Don't make fun of me," he told Dara sternly, turning his eyes to the window. "I don't like to be made fun of. I really don't." Okay, Dara replied softly. She pulled Josh back to the couch and then sat down. "Can't you play a quieter game?" Tony chimed in from the back of the room. "How about tackle football? That would be quieter." "Ha ha," Dara called back to Tony. "You're so funny, Tony. Wish I could be as funny as you are." "You are funny," Tony shot back. "Funny looking." He let out a high-pitched hyena laugh. "Shut up, Tony," I heard Carly scold him in a whisper. "Who's going to make me?" Tony demanded loudly. He really thought he was a riot. "Can we get something to drink?" I heard Carly ask. I think she was just trying to get Tony to be quiet. "Yeah, sure," Tony replied. They got up and made their way into the kitchen. "Ignore them," Dara said, turning back to us. She slid closer to Josh on the couch and smiled at him. "Let's go on with the game, okay?" Josh shrugged. He was still steaming, I think. Why was he so angry, I wondered? Or was he just hurt that Dara was going to tell us he was a terrible kisser? What had gone on between Dara and Josh in the past? If Dara had gone with Josh and broke up with him, why did she let him come for the weekend? Questions. "I've got another question for April," Dara said, staring at me thoughtfully. "Hey, no way," I protested. "I've already had a question, and besides, you didn't answer your question." "I'm the host," Dara replied smugly. "I get to make the rules. And I've got a good question for you, April." "Oh, good," Jenny said eagerly. She leaned forward. "April is always so private. I'd love to hear her tell a deep, dark secret." Jenny's words surprised me. I never really think of myself as a private person. But Jenny is my best friend. She knows me better than anyone else. Maybe I am kind of private, I found myself thinking. Maybe I do keep too much inside. "Here's my second question for you," Dara said, sweeping back her masses of hair. "April, what secret do you know about someone that you wish you didn't know?" I took a deep breath, and then without stopping for a second to think, I answered, "I wish I didn't know about the girl on Sumner Island." "What girl?" Jenny demanded. "April, what are you talking about?" I immediately regretted saying it. Why had I blurted out that answer? Why hadn't I thought about it first? Why hadn't I stopped myself? If only I could take the answer back, but it was too late. Feeling my face go red, I glanced at Ken. Did he realize that it was his secret, and that I knew it? He stared straight ahead at the fire, but I could see his eyes narrow. I could see that he was thinking hard about what I had just revealed. "What girl do you mean?" Jenny asked again. Before I could answer, Tony crept up behind me and slapped the back of my chair. I let out a shriek and practically jumped out of my skin. He let out a long burst of hooting laughter. "Tony, you really are a jerk," Dara said, shaking her head. "Takes one to know one," he shot back. He eased down beside me in the chair. "I like you, April," he said, sliding his arm around my shoulders. "You're my type." I turned uncomfortably and saw Carly rolling her eyes. I guess she was used to Tony's dumb flirting games. "I have a question for you, Tony," Dara said teasingly. "I know you have a lot of dirty secrets." "Almost as many as you, Dara," he said, grinning back at her. But, tell you what, skip the question. I'll take the dare. We all laughed. I'm serious, Tony insisted, staring at Dara. I'll take a dare. Any dare. What a macho guy, Dara replied sarcastically. Tony, you're really crazy, Carly muttered. I've got a perfect dare for you, Dara told him. She jumps to her feet. Come on, everyone. Get your coats. We followed her to the front. I peered through the sliding glass door. Wow, look at the snow, I cried excitedly. It's really coming down now, Jenny said beside me. It'll be great skiing by tomorrow. We pulled on our coats and scarves and gloves. Then we hurried outside. Dara stopped on the driveway. She turned back to the house and pointed up at the slanting roof. There's your dare. Up there, Tony. Squinting through the falling snow, I could make out a dark, round object on the shingles. What are you talking about? Tony demanded, stepping up close to Dara. That frisbee up on the roof. You threw it up there, didn't you? Dara said. Tony shrugged. So climb up and bring it down, Dara instructed. I dare you. But it's real slippery up there, Carly protested, her auburn hair fluttering around her face. And the snow is already sticking. Hey, no problem, Tony said. That's too easy, Dara. Don't do it, Tony, I blurted out. Carly is right. The snow will make it real slick up there. It's too dangerous. Dara narrowed her eyes at me, as if to say, butt out. I'll take that dare, Tony said. He started toward the garage. Halfway there, he turned back to us. If I fall off. I know you won't feel too guilty or anything, will you, Dara? Don't make me laugh. I have chapped lips, Dara replied nastily. A few seconds later, Tony emerged from the garage with an aluminum ladder. He propped it up against the front of the house. He turned to take a deep bow before starting up the ladder. The wind picked up suddenly, swirling the snow in circles. I shivered. A heavy feeling of dread rose from my stomach. He shouldn't be doing this, I thought, wiping snowflakes off my eyebrows. This is crazy. Dara doesn't like Tony, and she's really being mean to him. And he's too big a show-off to back down. I closed my eyes as Tony stepped onto the slanting roof, but I couldn't keep them closed. I had to watch. I huddled close to Jenny and Ken. Josh stood by himself in the driveway, hands shoved in his pockets. Snowflakes had spotted his glasses. Dara stood closest to the house, her arms crossed, an unpleasant smirk on her face. Hey, it's great up here, Tony cried, taking a step toward the frisbee, then another. You should all try it. He leaned forward, ducking against the swirling wind. He took a step. His foot slid. He caught his balance. Tony, come down, Carly pleaded. Come on. You've proved you're a macho guy. Come down, okay? He ignored her, took another step across the snowy roof, reached down for the frisbee. I let out a loud gasp as I saw his feet slide, both feet, slipping out from under him. His hands shot forward. He uttered a startled cry. The front of his coat hit the roof hard. His arms and legs thrashed wildly. We all screamed as he slid down the roof. Chapter 6. Tony's hands scraped against a shingle as he fell. He slid fast, too fast for any of us to move. His legs dangled over the edge, kicking frantically, and then he caught the gutter with both hands, and held on. Tony! Carly shrieked. Tony! He hung from the gutter for a moment, his feet swinging high above the snow. Then in one quick motion, Tony released his grip and leaped safely to the ground. I let out a long sigh of relief. Everyone cheered and clapped. A wide grin on his face, Tony came jogging across the snowy front lawn. He put an arm around Carly's shoulders and turned to Dara. Dara pointed to the roof. You forgot the frisbee, she said. We all laughed, but Tony glared coldly back at her. Get it yourself, he muttered. I'm out of the game. They really don't like each other, I realized. I wondered if they'd be able to spend this long weekend together without spoiling it for everyone. Let's take a walk, I suggested. It's so beautiful out. Let's walk in the woods. Dara's house stood at the top of the hill. Below it stretched dark pine woods. The ski slope started about half a mile past the woods. The nearest town stood about a mile past the ski slopes. I pulled up the hood of my parka and led the way down the sloping, snow-covered hill toward the woods. Everyone began laughing and singing. Even Tony joined in. We spun around wildly, bumping into and pulling at each other, raising our faces to the wet snow. The sky was a dark purple. The snow came down so hard and thick I could barely see the trees. I can't see a thing, Josh complained. His glasses were completely covered by snowflakes. As we entered the woods, we could see the snow clinging to the tree limbs. So beautiful. It looked like a Christmas card. I lingered behind. I kept thinking about my answer in the truth or dare game. I tried to forget about it, but my words followed me outside, stayed with me, repeating, filling me with dread as I tried to enjoy the beautiful night. Sumner Island. Since last summer, I couldn't get it out of my mind. Couldn't stop thinking about what I saw there, and every time I thought about it, I felt more and more guilty. Chapter 7. That hot, steamy August. A heat wave. Hardly a breeze. I was working as a mother's helper. Sumner Island was so pretty, so quaint, with its white, clapboard cottages, its carefully tended flower beds, the narrow beaches of white sand, the small wooden docks bobbing in the smooth, sparkling water. I was having a nice vacation, a little boring maybe, but nice, soaking up the sun, swimming, reading, hanging out with some friends in a little 2-block town after dark. It was all ruined when I saw Ken. I knew Ken and his family were vacationing on Sumner Island, but I hadn't run into him during my first week there. Then I saw him on the beach, with a girl I didn't recognize, with a girl that wasn't Jenny. She was very tanned. I think I noticed her tan before I noticed anything else. She had short black hair, sort of bobbed with bangs. I didn't see her face clearly. I was standing on the rocks at the edge of the beach, too shocked to go any closer. She wore a tiny blue bikini, I remember that. She and Ken had spread 2 big beach towels on the sand, but they both lay on only one of them, all tangled in each other. Ken was kissing her, a long kiss. They didn't move. I didn't move either. I stood gaping at them. I was so shocked, totally stunned. Finally, I turned and ran from the beach. I glanced back once. Ken and the girl hadn't moved. They were still kissing. I saw them in town the next day, but they didn't see me. Ken had his arm draped around her shoulders. They stopped in the middle of town square to kiss. I never told Jenny. I knew she would be crushed. I never told Ken that I had seen him, that I knew he had spent his vacation with another girl. I felt so guilty. I knew this terrible secret about Ken, but I just couldn't bring myself to tell Jenny. I didn't want to hurt her. After the vacation, she and Ken were back together as always. I wanted to tell Jenny what I had seen. I wanted to tell her that Ken wasn't the guy she thought he was. I felt so guilty for keeping this secret from my best friend, but I didn't have the nerve to tell her. A couple of times I started to tell her. I dialed her number, but then I hung up. As the months passed, I thought maybe I could forget about it, forget about what I saw on Sumner Island, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I felt more and more guilty. I guess that's why I blurted out that answer in the Truth or Dare game. I've been dying to let the secret out. It really is a secret I wish I didn't know. The words burst out of me. I didn't really think. And then I felt so bad that I had said them. I wondered if Ken knew what I was talking about. He must know, I decided. Now, for the first time, Ken must know that I know. "Hey, April, what are you doing back there?" Jenny called from up ahead. Brushing snow out of my eyes, I hurried to catch up. We tossed our wet coats in a pile in the front entryway. The fire had died down to a dark glow on the fireplace floor, but steaming mugs of hot chocolate warmed us up. The long walk through the woods had helped to ease the tense mood. Carly and Tony were laughing and joking with the rest of us. Even Josh seemed to be getting over his shyness, although he kept staring at Dara, studying her, watching her, as if expecting something from her. "We have to continue the Truth or Dare game," Dara suggested as we returned to the living room. "Not me," I said, yawning. "I'm ready for bed. I couldn't wait to get out of my wet clothes and under some warm blankets." Everyone seemed really tired. Dara shrugged and gave in. "See you guys in the morning," she said. We all headed to our rooms. The boys made their way to their rooms at the end of the long hall to the left. Carly, Jenny, and I went to our rooms in the other wing. I pulled off my sweater and jeans and tossed them onto a chair. Shivering, I pulled on a long flannel nightshirt. A few minutes later, I was coming out of the bathroom when I heard noises from the living room. Footsteps. Someone moving around in there. I padded down the hall and peered into the room. The fireplace was dark except for a few purple embers, but in the dim light from the glass door, I could see Dara pulling on a blue coat. "Dara, where are you going?" I called in a loud whisper. She turned, startled by my voice. "Just out to the woodshed," she replied, unrolling a pair of wet gloves and struggling to pull them on, "to get firewood for tomorrow morning." "Want some help?" I offered. She shook her head. No thanks, April. You've already changed. It won't take me long. Go get into bed, okay? I'll see you in the morning. See you in the morning, I replied sleepily. I heard the door open and close as I started back to my room. What's going on? A voice called. I turned to see Tony halfway down the boys' hall. Dara went out for firewood, I told him. He nodded and returned to his room. I wonder why Dara dislikes Tony so much, I thought, stepping back into my room and closing the door behind me. I wonder if they used to go out. I didn't have long to think about it. I was asleep a few seconds after lowering my head to the pillow. On Saturday morning, I sat up in bed and gazed at the window. The gray glare from outside made the glass gleam like silver. Had it snowed enough for us to go skiing? I climbed out of bed, stretched, and eagerly crossed the room to the window. Wow, I cried out loud. It's a blizzard. I stared out at the snow. It blanketed the ground and the trees. It must be a foot deep already, I realized. A deep drift appeared to climb up toward my window ledge. And the snow continued to fall, a shimmering curtain of tiny white flakes, swirled in all directions by a gusting wind. A blizzard, I repeated happily. Look out, Slopes. Here I come. I dressed quickly, brushed my teeth and my hair, and hurried to breakfast. Unfortunately, my good mood lasted only until I reached the kitchen and received the frightening news that 2 of us were missing. Chapter 8. Everything seemed normal at first. Tony leaned over the counter, pouring coffee into the coffee maker. Carly stood at the glass door, casually pulling her auburn hair back as she gazed out at the falling snow. Jenny and Ken were huddled by the radio. Good morning, I called cheerily. But they both raised a finger to their lips, signaling for me to be quiet. I stepped closer to hear what they were listening so intently to on the radio. The snow is expected to drop another 8 to 10 inches, the radio voice was saying. That's the good news. But the bad news for skiers is that the lifts will not be running due to the high winds. I groaned in disappointment. Ken frowned and shook his head. I thought the ski lifts always ran, he complained. What are we supposed to do all day? Climb up the slope on our hands and knees, I guess, I joked. Jenny angrily clicked off the radio. I don't believe it, she muttered unhappily. If it's too windy to ski, what are we going to do? Carly was the first to notice that Dara was missing. Where is she? She was telling me last night about what an early bird she is, Carly declared. Josh isn't up yet either, I commented. Tony poured water into the coffee maker and turned it on. I'm starving, he announced, starting to pull open kitchen cabinets. What's for breakfast? Could anyone go for eggs and bacon? Oink, oink, Carly muttered. Hey, I like bacon, Tony protested. I can make some pancakes, Jenny offered, if we have the ingredients. Do you think we should check on Dara? I asked, pulling open the refrigerator door. I took out a carton of orange juice and began searching the cabinets over the sink for the juice glasses. She needs her beauty sleep, I guess, Tony replied, snickering. Are there any eggs? Jenny asked me. Check the fridge. Can anyone find any pancake mix or anything? We all pitched in to make breakfast. I don't think any of us were really worried about Dara. Everyone seemed to be in a good mood as we stuffed ourselves on pancakes and syrup, bacon, juice, and coffee. I think the wind is dying down, Ken reported, studying the falling snow through the glass door. Yay, Jenny cheered. We've got to ski today. I don't think I can wait another day. Dara is missing a great breakfast, I muttered, wiping maple syrup off my chin with my napkin. Josh, too. As I said, we weren't too worried. But as we were rinsing the dishes and loading them into the dishwasher, it did seem strange that Dara hadn't appeared. She likes to be the good hostess, I said. It's not like her to skip breakfast. What do you want to do? Think we should go wake her up? Ken asked, turning off the sink faucets. He dried his hands on a dish towel, then pushed his brown hair off his forehead with one hand. Don't go in there. Let her sleep, Tony replied. He had joined Carly in front of the glass door. She's real cranky if you wake her. How do you know? Carly demanded suspiciously. Tony laughed. I'm just guessing. Dara is always cranky, right? Only to you, Tony, Jenny said under her breath. I think we should wake Dara up, I insisted. She'll probably be embarrassed that she didn't get up in time to have breakfast with us. You can do it, Ken said to me. We don't all have to go, do we? He clicked on the radio. Maybe there's better news about the weather. I'll go with you, April, Jenny volunteered. Okay, let's do it, I said. I closed the dishwasher. Then, drying my hands on the sides of my sweatshirt, I led the way down the hall to Dara's room. The door was closed. Jenny knocked. No reply. "Hey, Dara," I called in. "Rise and shine. Dara, it's morning." Still no reply. "Dara, can you hear us?" Jenny shouted. She knocked again. "Dara?" When we still didn't receive a reply, I turned the doorknob and pushed open the door. Jenny and I both gasped. "She's not here?" Jenny exclaimed. We stepped into the room and glanced around. "Weird," I murmured. "Her bed." I pointed. Her bed was made. Did Dara get up early and make it? Or did that mean she hadn't slept in it last night? "The room is so neat," Jenny commented, moving toward the bed. "Did she hang up—" "Her overnight bag!" I cried, pointing. It stood beside the dresser. It hadn't been unpacked. It hadn't been touched. "Jenny, I don't think Dara slept here last night," I stammered. "But that's impossible," Jenny exclaimed. Her blue eyes narrowed in confusion. "It's definitely weird," I said. I led the way back out to the hall. "Hey, Dara," I called. "Dara, are you here?" No answer. "Let's check out Josh's room," I suggested. I didn't wait for Jenny to reply. I jogged down the hall. "Did you find her?" Kenny called as Jenny and I passed the kitchen. "Not yet," I called back. Jenny and I trotted down the other long hallway to the room Ken and Josh shared. The door was open halfway, so we peeked in. "Josh?" I called softly. The dark wood bunk bed stood against the wall. I remembered that Josh wanted to sleep in the top bunk. No sign of him. No one there. "Weird," I repeated, shaking my head. Jenny shrugged. She appeared as puzzled as I was. We returned to the kitchen. "Did you guys see Josh this morning when you woke up?" I asked. Tony turned away from the window. "I didn't look for him," he replied, rubbing his chin. Ken was switching from radio station to radio station, searching for some good music. "I didn't see him either," he said. "But he slept in there with you last night, right?" I asked Ken. Ken scratched his head. "Well, yeah, I guess." "But weren't you in the bottom bunk?" I asked him. "I fell asleep real fast," Ken replied. "I guess Josh was up there. I don't really know. I'm such a heavy sleeper." "Well, I just think it's very weird that two of us aren't here this morning," I said, "and both of their beds look as if they weren't slept in." "They'll show up," Tony replied casually. He slid his arm around Carly's shoulders and turned back to the window. "They probably went for a walk." "In this blizzard?" I cried. But Tony's words reminded me of something. After we had all gone to bed, Dara had gone out for firewood. Had she brought the firewood in? I made my way into the living room and examined the fireplace area. No, the basket lay empty, except for a few twigs. The fireplace stood empty too. No firewood. "Hey guys," I called, my voice shaking as I hurried back to the kitchen. "We've got a little problem." "Have you heard this song?" Ken asked, cranking up the radio. "Isn't it awesome?" "Ken," I cried impatiently, "I think something strange has happened. Please." I clicked off the radio. Tony and Carly came over to the table. "What's up?" Tony asked. "I saw Dara going out late last night," I told them. "She said she was going to the woodshed for firewood, but there isn't any wood in the fireplace." Jenny let out a low cry. I saw her eyes narrow in fear. "Do you think—" "I think we should look outside," I said, fighting down my own fear. "Just in case—" I didn't finish my sentence. I didn't really know what I was thinking. I only knew that I had a growing feeling of dread inside me. Something was very wrong. Josh was gone. Dara was gone. Their beds appeared unslept in. We hurried to the front and quickly grabbed up coats, the first coat we could. Then we stepped out the door into the blowing snow. I had taken only a few steps when I realized that something else was wrong. I blinked once, twice, thinking maybe the heavy sheets of snow falling in front of me had confused me. But no, I was right. "Look," I cried, pointing to the snow-covered driveway. The empty driveway. The Jeep. It's gone. Chapter 9. "Dara and Josh probably left together," Tony said. I stared across the kitchen at him, trying to decide if he was serious. No way to tell. I rubbed my nose, still frozen and numb. We had hurried back into the house, eager to get out of the frigid swirling winds. The snow was coming down so hard and fast, it had covered up the Jeep tire tracks and any footprints. Now we huddled together around the table in the warm kitchen, staring out at the darkening sky, and thinking hard, trying to figure out why two of us were missing, along with the only vehicle. "Why do you say that?" I asked Tony. "What makes you think they drove off together?" A strange smile spread on Tony's face. "They used to go together," he said softly. Did you know that? No, but it wasn't anything serious, was it? I asked. Dara wasn't interested, Tony continued, but I think Josh still is. Did you see the hurt looks he kept giving Dara all last night? So you think, I started. I think they took a drive, to talk things over, Tony said, glancing at Carly. Carly never stopped fiddling with her masses of auburn hair. Now she was twisting a strand of it, curling it tensely around her fingers. You think they went for a drive in this weather? She asked Tony. It's possible, he muttered. We all gazed out the glass door. The sky was nearly as dark as night out there. The snow appeared pale blue as it swirled and spun to the ground. The wind howled around the sharp corners of the house. I'm putting on the kettle, Jenny said, rubbing the sleeves of her ski sweater. I can't seem to get warm. They probably drove to one of the ski lodges, Tony continued. There are a whole bunch of them just down the highway. But Dara wouldn't take the Jeep and go without leaving us a note, I insisted. She just wouldn't. She would if it was an impulsive, spur-of-the-moment thing, Jenny replied, filling the big blue kettle with water from the tap. Yeah, maybe Dara figured she and Josh would be back by now, but they had to stay at the ski lodge because of the snowy roads, Ken suggested. Then she would call us, I replied. I shoved my chair back from the table and stood up. I suddenly realized my heart was pounding. My hands were cold as ice. Listen, guys, I said, trying not to sound frightened. I really think we have to call the police. No, Tony cried loudly, too loudly. He glanced across the table at Carly. No, he said, more quietly this time. We can't call the police. Huh? Why not? I demanded. Well, Tony glanced again at Carly. You see, it would be kind of embarrassing, he said slowly, keeping his eyes on hers. It would get Carly and me in major trouble. He swallowed hard and turned to me. Our parents don't know we came up here, he confessed. If we call the police, our parents will find out, Carly added. Can't we just wait an hour or two? I'm sure Dara will call. I sighed and sat back down. I couldn't decide what we should do. I had a very bad feeling. Don't worry about Dara, Tony assured me. She's been coming up here since she was a kid. She knows every road and back road. I'm telling you, she and Josh are at a ski lodge right now, safe and warm. I studied Tony's face. To my surprise, he had beads of sweat running down his forehead. Why is he sweating like that? I asked myself. Why is he so determined to keep me from calling the police? Does he have another reason? I felt a shiver of fear. I'm frightened of Tony, I realized. He saw me staring at him. I turned away, turned to the glass door, in time to see something tumble off the roof. It hit the snow with a soft thud, and I started to scream.